Welcome to Headlines and History, live news reactions and your views. We're about to go live soon, so grab your spot and get ready for a sharp, balanced take on today's biggest news stories with a dash of historical insight. Stay tuned. Each week, we tackle the headlines that matter: politics, economics, global events with a balanced lens. We'll react live, tie today's stories to historical moments, and spotlight your views in the chat. From trade talks echoing the 1990s to crises recalling 2008, we're here to unpack it all. Your voice drives the show. Share your thoughts or historical parallels in the live chat, and we'll dive into the best ones. It's news, context, and community all in 1 hour. We're moments away from launching Headlines and History. Stick around for live reactions, historical nuggets, and your chance to chime in. Hit the notification bell, prep your comments, and let's make sense of the news together. See you soon. All right, welcome back. We are live again. Okay, so it's been an intense it's been intense. I've been trying to go live for the past hour. I've gone live, it breaks, and then I give Restream several chances. Don't worry, I'm going to fix this. I spent hours and hours last night. I was up till 4 in the morning trying to make sure that the presentation today goes well. And after all that preparation, all that prep time, because like I've told you many times, I want the show to kind of cater to you. I want the show to be something that is valuable to you. And in order to make that happen, I wanted to include the ability to show your comments on the screen. Okay, it's streaming now. I wanted to have the ability to show your comments on the screen while we're having these conversations. And I've been sorely disappointed. Like, I'm heartbroken that I can't do that. And I don't think I will be able to do that. Now, the call-in feature that I've been advertising for a long time may not be possible eventually because of this crazy situation that I'm seeing with Restream. Restream is a software that I use to multi-stream. I stream on 5 platforms, my main YouTube channel, backup YouTube channel, and then I also stream on Kick, Twitch, and on Rumble. And it's a snazzy arrangement. It's a great arrangement. But for today, it's disappointed me 3 times. Twice. I've gone live twice. I've spent the better part of the last hour trying to figure out why Restream won't let me easily do my reaction videos and let me show your chats on the screen. And it keeps breaking. So I'm a bit upset about that because I really wanted to be able to show your chats on the screen. I wanted to honor you in that way because for me, it's really important that I'm able to do that for you while we're live. Okay, so I've lost a bunch of viewers, but that's fine. We're going to move forward. All right, so we're going to be starting from the very top. President Trump has announced that he's going to be suing the BBC for misrepresenting his speech on January 6th. We're going to go through the story covered by GB News, and then we're also going to be looking at President Trump's statement on the matter. There's another commentator or someone else who is a witness to what was going on in the background at the BBC during this time, because the stories that we're reading online, especially the statements being released by the BBC, they say that it was a mistake. Look, guys, I edit videos. I edit my videos myself. You can't accidentally, with the degree of precision that they did, splice that video to make President Trump say what he didn't say. It has done irreparable damage to his reputation. Look, let me know in the chat if you are in support of him suing the BBC for $1 billion. I am. Because if I were him, I would go further. I would bankrupt the BBC. It cost him the election. It cost the people who went to jail, who were tormented for over a year. Right now, so some of them did commit crimes that they needed to pay for. That's fine, okay? I know the argument. How about the people who attacked cops? How about this and the other? Yes, those guys need to go to jail. But to demonize the people who went out there to protest, to say, look, there's something wrong with the way these elections were held. It is dishonest, it is wrong, and we shouldn't stand for it. That's my opinion. So let's listen to the report. Some of you, maybe, you've come back to follow the stream. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your loyalty. I appreciate it. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. I set the tone. Is a member. He indicated interest in joining the call-in today. Restream has messed with that. We can't have the call-in. I'm upset, but we're going to move on, and we're going to look at this story. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. All right. Remember, I will always respond to you in the chat. Nope. Oh, come on. All right, guys, sorry. I just realized that the audio wasn't coming through. We're going to be fine. Guys, we're going to be fine. We are all going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Sorry about that. The audio should be working now. Story
in town. It turns out American President Donald Trump was onto something.
Where are you from?
BBC.
Okay. Here's another beauty.
It's a good line. Impartial, free and fair.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that criticism of the BBC and John Sopel, who was talking to there, apparently was well-founded, because the so-called impartial and accurate public service broadcaster is nothing but.
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President...
Because tonight the BBC is facing serious questions over its credibility after the Daily Telegraph exposed a panorama segment that heavily doctored a speech by the American president in 2021, hours before the infamous January the 6th Capitol riot. As you're about to hear, the corporation spliced together two quotes 1 hour apart to make it seem like he encouraged an insurrection.
They played the following clip.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight.
Now follow this.
We fight like hell.
But Trump didn't, in fact, say this at all. The BBC spliced together two clips that took place 54 minutes apart. So let's go through it again.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you.
Now, see there, between Capitol and, that's a cut. Here's what Trump actually said.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Can you see what they did there?
Different. It wasn't until nearly an hour later that he then said the second part of the BBC's version.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we fight. We fight like hell.
That is damning stuff. Now, this, of course, is coming from the holier-than-thou BBC that even had...
All right, so let me know your thoughts in the chat, okay? So we've seen the evidence of what they did. Like I keep telling you my account of my conversation with an old acquaintance, he still believes that President Trump incited the insurrection by giving a speech that encouraged them to go into the Capitol building and riot. The BBC deserves to be sued into oblivion. That is my opinion. What do you think? All right. Is that an attack on free speech? I don't look. Some crazy people out there are going to try to squeeze this into a free speech debate. It is not. This is defamation. This played into the 2020 elections, further not being investigated by Congress, because the people in Congress who hated President Trump on the Republican side used this as ammunition to defer to the Democrats and refuse to investigate the allegations that the elections were not handled in a free and fair manner. Now, we've seen the footage. Now let's watch President Trump tell us his plans, because he's been very clear. And let's listen to him in this interview with Fox News.
Are you going ahead and suing the BBC?
Well, I guess I have to. You know, why not? Because they defrauded the public, and they've admitted it, and their top echelon.
Director General and the CEO
This
both
is
resigned.
within one of our great allies. You know, this is supposedly our great ally, BBC. The government has a chunk of that one, I guess, but that's a pretty sad event. They actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical.
Yeah.
And they actually changed it. What they did was rather incredible. They're showing me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up. But it was very dishonest, and the head man quit, and a lot of the other people quit.
Now, you've seen the difference between the two speeches. That the one that was edited by the BBC, and you can see what he actually said. And look, go back and get that speech. It's online. Go back and listen to it. Many people feel like President Trump goes on and on during his speeches. He talks too much. He weaves, like he says. And they feel like, well, it's okay for me to find a source that digests or distills the ideas that he's trying to put together in just a few minutes, and I can watch that. I think it's a bad idea to dumb yourself down. I believe that is dumbing yourself down. We've come into an age, and this is just a thought that just got into my head. We've come into an age where listening to 45-minute concertos, because that was what people used to do back in the 17th and 18th centuries. They would go to the opera, they would sit through a 45-minute, hour-long concerto, and it created, like, it allowed people to use their imagination to be edified by the music. Today we just have 5-minute hit songs. Taylor Swift releases a single that's 5 minutes, 4 minutes. People can't even listen that long anymore to lyrics. So it's all about riffs and bridges. Nothing sophisticated anymore. And it shows when people can't sit through a speech where an individual is letting you know what they think about an issue. President Trump, yes, he speaks very long, yesterday I was shocked that his speech at Arlington was not as long as it usually is. It was quite brief and straight to the point. I was surprised. But look, guys, go find the speech that he made during the January 6th protest. Listen to it for yourself. And then come back to me and then let me know what you think about that speech. Was he inciting an insurrection? Because they've made him out to be someone who did that. People still say that. People still believe that the narrative that the BBC and CNN and the mainstream media gave us is the right one. I used to be a big fan of the BBC. I listened to the BBC. My older brother gave me a radio when I was preparing for my high school exams, because he said if you listen to someone speaking good grammar, it's great for you in your preparation for your exams in English and so on. And he was right. I listened to the BBC for years. I was a fan of the BBC until I realized that these guys were radical. They were lying. They figured out ways to spin the news to create a narrative that would herd me in a direction that they wanted me to go in. It wasn't about telling me the truth anymore. And so that's my little rant about BBC. Should they be sued? Yes. Now, there's a guy who has stepped forward to talk about what happened. Now, let's listen to this report and then let me know what you think. I think it's a call in. Let's listen to this. Let me know your thoughts in the chat.
Oh, hi, Julia. I'm just getting a little bit tired of hearing, the BBC have made a mistake. Everybody's saying mistake. Yes. The media's saying mistake. It really isn't a mistake, is it? A mistake is me calling you Julie instead of Julia, or you calling me Chris.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake. That's a genuine
Quite
mistake.
Right, Chris.
These are thanks, Julie. And it's very, very blatant.
Yeah, and deliberate.
Really
it's a deliberate, and it was politically motivated.
When someone says to you, "Oh, sorry, that was a mistake," and it was very clear it was deliberate. Look, let's not. They've spent the last 20 years trying to redefine words. This wasn't a mistake. You can tell that to people who have never edited a video in their life. I edit my own videos. That wasn't a mistake.
Absolutely. And I'm just getting wound up with it. People are even coming on to talk saying, oh, it's a mistake, it's a mistake. Everyone's out there saying it's a mistake, we've made a mistake. It really isn't a mistake. A mistake is, going down a one-way road the wrong way. That's a mistake. So let's just clear this up once and for all. It's not a mistake.
It was a deliberate act. It was a politically motivated, very deliberate act of sabotage.
So they essentially interfered with, at the back end, I would say that the BBC interfered with the United States presidential elections. There's a lot of talk about Russian interference and so on. The BBC interfered with the United States elections. Okay, you know it, I know it, they know it. So let's not play games. Right? Let's not play games. Right, so the chat is open. Let me know your thoughts. I am tracking the chat and I really do want us to have a conversation about this. So, moving on. Yesterday we covered the obscene attacks that were covered during the TPUSA event at UC Berkeley. I called it out. I said, look at what's going on. I can't show you everything, but apparently mainstream media decided to pull a Summer of Love report. You know that meme where in the background the buildings were burning and someone on CNN was saying these protests are mostly peaceful? Well, they've pulled out that strategy yet again. So here's a reporter claiming that the protests at the location were mostly peaceful.
event. Our Amanda Harry is live on the scene there where protesters also showed up. We've already actually seen at least one fight break out. Amanda.
Yeah, things have been lively here. While that Turning Point USA event is still happening inside, protesters have been out here for hours. You can see them still here behind me. They have been chanting, just a very, very lively scene out here. While things have been mostly peaceful, there have been some tense moments. Earlier this evening, there was a scuffle that broke out where two men started fighting. UC Berkeley police had to break up that interaction. Later, someone was throwing smoke bombs and a car backfired, leading some of the people.
So that was two men fighting. According to them, someone had his belongings stolen. He ran after the person who stole his belonging. Someone else intercepts him and begins to pummel him. He's the only one bloodied in the encounter, and according to mainstream media, two men were fighting. Now, is that an oversimplification? Let me know in the chat.
Who are protesting to run away. The protest was put together by students organizing for liberation. Some students say they don't believe UC Berkeley should host a large Turning Point USA event like this one, but other people are happy to be here for the event.
Turning Point USA should not be here, and they are like a
the usual suspects. The usual suspects. Okay. Do I have anything against nose piercings? No. If you want to pierce your nose, you can go ahead. However, the people who tend to react to free speech movements like TPUSA tend to look like this. It's just interesting. Okay, it's interesting. I know people personally who aren't radicals who have nose piercings. I do, but the one that goes like, you know, the one that goes through the septum piercing thing, that is a bit, you know, is out there, and most people who have that tend to be very radicalized.
This organization, and nobody here agrees with what they are saying, and obviously,
if you don't agree with what they're saying, then stay in your hostels, stay in your corner. No one is asking you to practice what they're discussing. It's a free speech conversation. There's a panel, people ask questions, you get to debate the people who are speaking during the panel, and if you don't like what they say, it's fine. It's fine. Okay? The normalization of insanity in present day culture is really problematic. It's problematic. I see this and it's like, so how hard is it for you to just say, okay, they're having that thing over there, I don't agree with it, I'd rather go over here and do my thing? Do you have to disrupt what other people who don't even know or care that you exist are having their own event? They believe in free speech. They believe in conservatism. They believe a different ideology than you do. Do you have to provoke them? Because when you look at the protest, the news will cover the scuffle, but they won't show what led up to the scuffle. For minutes and minutes, one of the they say they are student protests, but yeah, they carry Antifa flags and insignia and chant the same things that Antifa has been chanting in other cities across the United States. All right, so let's not play games. This is Antifa. For minutes and minutes, that guy was being provoked because there was a guy standing in front of him smoking and blowing smoke in his face. And then eventually someone leaves the crowd, steps over and then grabs his belongings, and then he chases after that guy. That's how it all started. They had been provoking him for minutes, and then someone attempts to steal his stuff. He runs after that guy. Then one of the Antifa militants, because that's who that guy is, intercepted him and began to pummel him. Okay, so they ganged up on him, they set him up, and you know what? We just have to call things out the way we see them. It's really that simple.
Charlie Kirk has been a big issue with like a lot of college campuses and people on college campuses. So we just think like, I mean, obviously I didn't really follow him a lot, but knowing what he...
So why don't you go watch his videos? And she's about to say knowing what he stood for. You haven't watched his videos. You haven't. You don't have an opinion. You were given an opinion. You haven't fact-checked that opinion.
And knowing the things that he was saying is just like vile and disgusting. So we don't want to support his organization, and I don't think that the Berkeley chancellor should have let them come here.
All right, so that is what the news covered, all right? That they were mostly peaceful. All right, so here's an attendee at the event, and here's her perspective. This is someone who went to an event. She didn't go out there to interfere with anyone else's way of life or anything. She just went for an event. She was one of the organizers, I think. And here's what she said.
It's not safe anymore to walk around Berkeley as a conservative. It's a very dangerous place. Antifa is prevalent, and it's a domestic terror group that needs to be handled with. And quite frankly, with all their defund the police chants, I don't think the police are intervening enough and protecting the students enough.
The Antifa is basically like if we had a group that just in the South, if we had a group in the South that had a uniform and went around and terrorized people who were trying to hold speeches, you know, like the Klan did back in the day, like we'd be able to say this is a domestic terror group and should be targeted accordingly. And like when you have these Antifa urchins who will harass any conservative event in Berkeley, that is a domestic intimidation.
Yeah, so let's call it what it is. Let's call it what it is. Right? After the incident of September 10th, and this is like me beating a drum that has been beaten to death. After September 10th, why are these people still allowed to do what they're doing? Why are these schools still allowed to not sanction students who act in this way? Why? Yes, there's a thin line. You know, there'll be people who say, if the school steps up to say no more protests, you know, then you're now dealing with a free speech issue and so on. And then you have all of these weak arguments. I call them weak arguments. If anyone engages in activity that interrupts the freedom of speech and the freedom of assembly of an American citizen, that person has to be held accountable. Did that person that they are trying to engage with commit a crime while they were engaging in freedom of speech? Yes or no? Did they engage in activity that harm people? Yes or no? These guys are being allowed to do this because of cowardice. The leaders of UC Berkeley are cowards. Thanks for following. The leaders of UC Berkeley are cowards. They let this happen, and when there are no consequences to these actions, these people are emboldened, and they continue to act in the very same ways that they did. In fact, it's gotten worse. It's gotten worse since the murder of Charlie Kirk, because while Charlie Kirk was alive, okay, they were never this violent. I don't recall any report of people getting beaten up and bloodied outside of Turning Point USA events. I don't. But since he was murdered, that was a green light that told people you're allowed to do that to them because it's game on. It's on. Like when Charlie was murdered, you could see the chatter online. It's on. Oh, we can do that now. We can kill them now. So here's Jack Posobiec's report. Now, these are the people that they came to protest. People who just want to be left alone. They just want to be left alone. There are conversations happening online, and I've watched Asmund Gold. You know, he said, look, as long as this continues to happen, eventually, one day, a group of conservatives are going to say, okay, enough. I don't want that to happen. I don't. Because what's going to happen is we're going to have people who use that reaction as justification for all of the accusation they've made for years. Oh, look at them. The conservatives are the ones who are violent. I told you yesterday about the argument I had with Grok. Grok was trying to convince me that there was more violence coming from the right, and I was like, okay, give me the evidence. And so, well, a government report says so. Under the Biden administration, where they were sending. The FBI was sending essentially spies into the Catholic Church. They were designated a group of interest. I think that was what they were called. In other words, this group is a far-right group that needs to be watched and investigated, the Catholic Church. They designated parents who went to school board meetings to complain that boys were using their daughters' restrooms in the schools. The FBI would come in routinely to harass these parents. Under the Biden administration, that was deemed right-wing violence, if you don't know. That's what Grok was feeding on. And that's what Grok was reporting. All of this makes no sense, okay? Because it's all lies. But Grok is feeding on what has been put out there. That's what you need to understand about AI. AI isn't thinking for itself. It is using an aggregation of content out there on the internet and uses it to feed you results. If you want me to talk more about AI, okay, you can let me know in the comment section or in the chat. I'll let you know the best ways to use AI. The best ways to use AI, that will be helpful. But you don't use AI to form ideologies or to confirm truths. You need to base the truths on facts. And the fact is, Antifa is a left-wing terror group that has been protected by the leadership of the Democrat Party. This is the brown shirts. This is the brown shirts. If you don't know what the brown shirts are, do a search of the brown shirts. These are people who want to be left alone. So the people who are calling the attendees at TPUSA fascists are the ones who are behaving like fascists. Okay? They are behaving like fascists. It is scenes like this that make me feel like I will not be sending my kids to Ivy League schools. I don't care if the diploma is framed with gold. I don't care. My kids are not going to be indoctrinated by the insanity from Ivy League schools, because they are essentially turning out Marxists and communists. Yeah. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. Here's the statement by
Elizabeth, there's no
Jacob
question. Protest is, of course, protected by our freedom of speech. But as you can see, and everyone can see on these videos, this isn't protest. This has crossed the line into violence. And we see the violence of flares that were being lit, of people that were being beaten bloody, of chains and bicycles that were attacked, people who were harassed, had things thrown at them. This isn't protest. That's protected by the First Amendment. And of course, Charlie not only supported it, Charlie was one of the biggest exercisers of it. His whole tour was debate me. So if you wanted to disagree with him, he would invite you to the very front and give you a microphone.
Yep.
But this isn't protest. This was direct, coordinated network violence. And you see elements of various extreme ideologies. You see the furry ideology was on scene there. That was something that would have been directly tied to one of the associates of Charlie's accused murderer. So there's a lot we see here. But protest, no, this isn't protest. This is clearly violence, and it was an attack on all of our freedom of speech.
Yeah, we have a mental health crisis across the globe. And you have mentally unwell people being allowed to roam the streets and intimidate people because once they say this person is a fascist, it's almost like it's a license to do what you're doing. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think the government should be doing about things like this? What do you think the government should be doing about things like this? I want to know your thoughts. I don't think the government should permit this kind of behavior. If people have the right to assemble, the right to free speech, it doesn't go away simply because a group decides that they want to label them as fascists or Nazis, therefore giving them the license to do whatever they please to that group. This is intimidation. This is an unlawful gathering. It is not, let's not talk about protest. It is about, if you're protesting, now protests tend to be protests against an authority. Okay, when you're protesting, it is protesting an authority. That's what, I'm not a citizen of the United States. You can counter me in the chat, right? Chat, counter me there. Protests tend to happen when you're protesting an authority, a decision that the authorities have made. It is not protest when you're protesting fellow citizens. If they wanted to protest the fact that the school administration allowed a Turning Point USA event on campus, they should go to the admin building and protest. That is my position. If they weren't protesting the admin building and they are pretending to be protesting by heading to the event and intimidating attendees of the event, they should all be arrested and they should all be expelled from the school. That's my opinion. It's just my opinion. Behavior like this continues when it is not punished. If the roles were flipped, mainstream media would be all over it. You know, I think right now, the main enemy that I'm fighting, excuse me for coughing into the mic, the main enemy that I have right now is mainstream media. We've watched the news about the BBC lying to all of us, framing President Trump as a monster, as somebody who used his influence. Thank you for following. Thank you so much. Someone who used his influence to cause the crowds to head out to the Capitol building and cause a disturbance. They called it an insurrection. They needed a reason to eventually say, yes, we told you Trump was bad. Here's the evidence. They needed that. They got it. And that's why I say, let's not give them the ammunition that they need to paint us as evil. Let's not do that. Let's stay calm. Let's do the right thing. Let's stay calm. But we need to hold the government accountable. Okay, the government should be held accountable. Why isn't the school being held accountable for this kind of behavior on their premises? Why can't we see the schools controlling the crowds whenever conservatives are having events? Why should conservatives feel unsafe on campuses? And yet, liberals continue to say that there's more violence coming from conservatives. It is a lie, and I would add, is a lie from the pit of hell. Tara, I see you. Hello, I see you. I can see you. It's a lie from the pit of hell. I don't want us to continue to play these games. Like I've toned down my use of the word evil during the videos and the live streams. I have. But this is evil. When people decide that they want to call good evil and evil good, we need to call it out. All right, we need to call it out. Will it take another Charlie Kirk situation before we take this seriously? Will it take another murder for us to say, look, this has to be controlled? I don't want to play the full video. I'm trying very hard to keep my videos, as PG, PG-13 as possible, so that YouTube doesn't put an age restriction on my videos. But when you're watching these incidents on X, because X doesn't censor these things, it depends on the creator to decide to censor, these things. X doesn't. And you go into X and you see what actually happens. You see the true victims of these altercations. You see what the mainstream media doesn't want you to see. They want to frame it like they did with President Trump's speech. They want to frame it like this person or that person is the problem. And if you don't follow the stories properly, you'll be deceived. You'll basically buy the narrative, because they're essentially, mainstream media is all about selling a narrative. They sell you the narrative that they want you to have. And then eventually, when you find out that they lied to you, it's 4 years later? If people had found out 4 years ago that all of this was a frame-up, was a lie, that the FBI had agents in the crowd, would it have made a difference in how the entire situation of January 6th being an insurrection, would it have made a difference in how people saw the lawfare against President Trump all this time? Would it have made a difference on how people, conservative voices, were being doxxed and attacked and called all sorts of names for years? I followed conservatives for years. I didn't have my YouTube channel at the time. I watched conservative voices, and I was like, why is there so much insanity in the world? Would that have made a difference? What do you think? If BBC's lies hadn't been spread, if CNN and TDSBC's lies hadn't been spread and consumed by the regular viewer, would that have made a difference? I'm curious to know. I have one more story. Senator John Fetterman goes on The View. The ladies of The View wanted to, they wanted to go toe-to-toe with John Fetterman, and here's how that ended up.
It was a horrific mistake. Governor Gavin Newsom called it pathetic and a surrender. Poll after poll found more Americans on both sides of the aisle blaming Republicans. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene blamed the GOP. As you mentioned, Democrats had big wins last week, so you had momentum. Why give in now? Why bring a butter knife to a gunfight? Are you willing to gamble that the GOP will negotiate on health care in good faith once the government reopens, because if that gamble is wrong, 500,000 Pennsylvanians that you represent, their health care costs will skyrocket if you are wrong.
Now, speaking of lies, here's another group of liars. The View, the ladies of The View, another group of liars. We found that I did play a video of theirs last week when they were engaging in yet another lie, and then they got a note from legal saying, "Look, you can't say that." And then they pivoted to say, "Oh, we're only joking." Whenever they are caught in a lie, they claim that they're joking. Here she is spouting the talking points that leftists have adopted since President Trump didn't get negatively impacted by the government shutdown. In fact, his polling numbers went up, while Chuck Schumer's polling numbers went down. She's saying that the Democrats should not have capitulated, that they should have held on. Over 42 million people who depend on these benefits were being deprived. The GOP called for votes 13 times to reopen the government so that these people will get their benefits. The Democrat Party 13 times voted no. And yet she's claiming that Americans were blaming the GOP for the shutdown. That's yet another lie. Because the polling numbers tell us the Americans knew that it was a Democrat shutdown. It was a Chuck Schumer-led shutdown. It was not a GOP-led shutdown. If the GOP was pushing for the shutdown, why would they vote yes 13 times to open up the government so that people would get their benefits? Why would they vote yes 13 times and the Democrats voted no? Let's listen to John Fetterman's response.
And I believe you are wrong.
Well, first of all, MTG is quite literally the last person in America that I'm going to take advice or to get their kinds of my leadership and values. And now, if Democrats are celebrating crazy pants like that, then that's on them.
Wow.
And I don't need a lecture. I don't need a lecture from whether it's Bernie or the governor in California, because they are representing very deep blue kinds of populations, and a lot of those things were part of the extreme. And now remember, what really needs to win, the big win, is involving my state and other states and those things. And why have we arrived here after the election a year ago? We got to forget some of the things that cost us that election. Or now, for me, it's like, that's why I'm trying to remind people that kinds of the extremism, we can't return to those kind of things, and realize we need to find a way forward. And I would like to, rather than cite MTG, I'm going to cite one of the new governor-elects saying that my election is not a green light to continue the shutdown, because I promise you, this isn't a political game. It is viewed by many of us, but the reality is 42 million Americans now not sure where their next meal is going to come from, and because we vote like that, or people that haven't been paid for 5 weeks now, and that kinds of chaos. Those workers have to borrow more than $500 million, from their credit union just to pay their bills now. So for me, we're in the middle of this.
Senator, I got to ask you to hold up a
whenever they have someone who is speaking common sense, they tend to want to interrupt them. And that is the game plan of The View. All right. So let's engage in the chat. Let me know your thoughts on the stories that we've covered so far. We've talked about President Trump's $1 billion lawsuit. Okay. Let's see. I want to read the article from... I want to read the article, or not the article, but the report from X. When we started the live stream the first time, I was attempting to, excuse me, Trump, BBC, J6. All right, so I was attempting I was attempting to run the live stream through Restream and use the browser to basically play the videos and do everything, and everything just failed. And I think that's the last time I'm going to do that. It will take a whole lot for me to go back to Restream to run the live streams. It essentially knocked the wind out of me. So I'm not going to trust Restream, the online studio, for a while. It helps with showing your chats, but 2 streams in a row, it has basically damaged the streams. So I'm just not going to give them my heart anymore. Okay, they've broken my heart too many times. So here's this on X. Okay, Trump threatens $1 billion BBC lawsuit over edited January 6th speech. So this is the report coming now. I haven't read this. It's been changing because it's updated. It keeps updating every few minutes because it's AI. AI goes out there, gets the sentiments, gets the news out there, and then just condenses it and puts it up here for us to read. All right, President Donald Trump has confirmed plans to sue the BBC for at least $1 billion, claiming a panorama documentary fraudulently edited his claiming. It is this kind of disingenuous framing of stories that grinds my gears. I don't like seeing people try to belittle or to downplay an obvious truth. We saw the videos, we watched the videos. Look, you need to catch these hypocrisies as soon as you see them. It will help you wake up. Once you hear the word claims, it should be a signal for you to go do your own research. If you hear this person claimed, that person claimed, it means that the person who is giving you the news is trying to finagle you away from the truth. Claiming a panorama documentary fraudulently did fraudulently edit his January 6, 2021 speech to suggest he incited violence at the US Capitol. Let's keep going. The BBC acknowledged editorial errors. Again, another falsehood. It wasn't an error. It was a calculated move to smear President Trump. They did it intentionally. I edit videos and I try to be precise with my cuts. Editing is a precise art. So they did not conduct editorial, or they did not make an editorial error, leading to the resignation of Director General Tim Davie and several executives, while appointing Jessica Cecil to lead the news division, despite her role in dismissing initial concerns. And that is because BBC, the institution BBC, essentially threw Tim Davie under the bus and then replaces him with another activist. That's how these organizations work. They threw him under the bus, maybe gave him a nice severance, maybe somewhere down the line he gets a knighthood, because there's always backroom deals, and then they replace him with another activist who's going to do their bidding. The next opportunity they get to smear someone who is going against the grain, they will take it. Because she's already saying, look, these concerns, well, then again, she's doing the bidding of her bosses. So even if she wanted to tell the truth, she can't. And they don't hire people who tell the truth. They hire people who are team players. They are team players. They do what they're told, and they say thank you. They say yes, sir, no, sir. All right, UK politicians, including Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey and Prime Minister Keir Starmer have defended the BBC's independence, amid transatlantic tensions and debates over its funding and impartiality. Okay, now this story is a summary of posts on X and may evolve over time. So whenever you read these stories from X, okay, always take note of the disclaimer. All right, so this is a developing story. I'm not sure the lawsuit has landed. Really? This is 4 hours ago. Okay, so let's see if this is actual documentation. Oh my goodness. Wow. This is the letter. All right. So this is a letter from Alejandro Brito. This must be the solicitor that President Trump has engaged. The above referenced false, defamatory, malicious, disparaging, and inflammatory statements were published to deliberately denigrate President Trump. The timing of the fabricated documentary is evident. The BBC's reckless disregard for the truth underscores the actual malice behind the decision to publish the wrongful content. Given the plain falsity of the statements, accordingly, President Trump hereby demands that you, 1, immediately issue a full and fair retraction of the documentary and any and all other false, defamatory, disparaging, misleading, and inflammatory statements about President Trump in as conspicuous manner as they were originally published. Whoa. Okay, now this is going to be a doozy because how can you measure that? Immediately issue an apology for the false, defamatory, disparaging, misleading, and inflammatory statements about President Trump. So far, I haven't heard an apology. They are trying to deflect to say that it was a mistake. Thank you for following the channel. Thank you. Look, guys, let me know your thoughts in the chat. I want to read your chat and then we can have a conversation. 3, appropriately compensate President Trump for the harm caused. Okay. This is the letter giving them notice. Okay, he's giving them notice. I'm looking for where it says, okay, moreover, please allow this letter to serve as notice to you, to your affiliated entities, subsidiaries, and all of their employees, and any other person acting on behalf of or in concert with the BBC, to preserve any and all evidence related in any way to the above-mentioned malicious, false, and defamatory statements the BBC published, and any other statements that the BBC has published regarding President Trump. It's a $1 billion lawsuit, guys. $1 billion. Let's see what the end of the letter says. There's a number. Okay, so I think okay, so let's read it and then we'll just give our interpretation. I don't want to jump the gun, guys. Okay, I don't want to jump the gun. If the BBC does not comply with the above by November 14th, that's in 2 days, 2025, at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, President Trump will be left with no alternative but to enforce his legal and equitable rights, all of which are expressly reserved and are not waived, including by filing legal action for no less than $1 billion in damages. The BBC is on notice. Boom! Please govern yourselves accordingly. Wow! What do you think? What do you think? Okay, this is what. Whoa! When you see the numbers on paper, it kind of makes it real. What do you think of this letter? Okay, I had to jump to the end. What do you think of this letter? Now let's look at ground news, because ground news said something very weird about the lawsuit. Okay, Trump BBC. Ground news said something weird about the lawsuit when I covered it, when I read it. Let's see. This is a recent one. Okay, this is a recent report. Trump says he has obligation to sue BBC over speech edit. Okay, now I like using ground news because it kind of tells me where the news is leaning, left or right. So on the left, we see the summary says U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans to sue the BBC for $1 billion, claiming, again, they use the word claiming, they defrauded the public by editing a speech he made after the 2020 election. Keir Starmer refused to comment on whether he would urge Trump to drop his lawsuit threat against the BBC. Well, he can't. Look, guys, I don't want President Trump to drop the lawsuit. What do you think? I don't want him to drop the lawsuit. I want him to sue them. I was hoping he would sue them for more than $1 billion. Because what they did cost the United States more than $1 billion. Yeah, he did. He's suing on a personal level. He could sue them for $10 billion, keep the $1 billion for his own personal damages, and then donate the remaining 9 to the U.S. government. Look, they cost the U.S. government more than that, but that's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. Okay, some of you may not like the fact that I'm saying it, but it's the truth. The BBC's edit of Trump's speech sparked resignations, including the Director General and the news chief, due to accusations of misleading. It's not an accusation. They misled the public by editing the speech that way. All right. What do you think, chat? Chat, are you there, chat? What do you think? Trump's lawyer, Alejandro Brito, we just read the stunning letter that he wrote. The guy is a great lawyer, man. If I could afford him, I would hire him. Trump's lawyer, Alejandro Brito, stated plans to file the lawsuit unless the BBC provides a full retraction and compensation for the alleged harm caused. These are the headlines being presented by CNN News. Trump says I have an obligation to sue the BBC in the Fox interview. So on the right, we have them saying U.S. President Donald Trump stated that he has an obligation to sue the BBC for editing his January 6th speech. Trump accused the BBC of defrauding the public by editing his speech to make it appear radical, omitting his call for peaceful protest. BBC Director General Tim Davie resigned and so on. So we have the lowdown on this story. We have people already saying that they are raring to push the free speech angle, saying Trump is there's going to be a chilling effect when Trump puts out this lawsuit. What's chilling effect? People lied about President Trump. He's suing. I think he's well within his rights to sue them for $10 billion. Yeah, $10 billion. Bodies like the BBC have been running roughshod over people who can't fight back for decades. And I think with this opportunity that President Trump has, I think he's trying to be moderate. I think he's trying to be nice and moderate. He's trying to say, well, let's be friends. And the way to stay friends is to ask them to just pay something that we know they can pay. After all, they have all that USAID money. Yeah, because the USAID was sending money to the BBC. We know they were doing that. They were sending money to the BBC. So, in the end, I believe Trump is well within his rights to sue the BBC. Okay. So, what do you think in the chat? All right. So, we're at the point where we're supposed to be exchanging ideas now. All right. So, guys, what do you think in the chat? All right. Should President Trump take them for more than $10 billion like I've been claiming that he should? I want him to. I want him to. Number two, concerning the UC Berkeley situation that we discussed earlier, what are your thoughts? Okay, what are your thoughts? I would really like us to, see some consequences with respect to the people who attacked and intimidated people who were attending a free speech meeting, wanting to mind their own businesses. All right. So we've essentially covered this story. We've flogged it to death. We covered it at the front end. We showed you the videos. We've read the articles. We've read the amazing letter by Alejandro Brito. It's a 4-page letter, and we only got 2 of the 4 pages. All right, so where's the rest? So here's the kind of hypocrisy, okay, that we continue to run into. Okay, I was about to just say, okay, hey, let's call it a day. But whenever you go online, you see people who behave like idiots, like this guy. Trump wants to destroy the BBC and take our money, and Nigel Farage is egging him on. All true patriots should tell them both, hands off our BBC. Jenny Nabin says all good patriots should hold the liars to account. Okay, so let's see. Oh my goodness. Oh, so this guy, Ed Davey, just got ratioed on. Look at this. He, tell them hands up, and then Jenny Nabin posts this. All patriots should hold the liars to account, and then posts a newspaper article. Now, how Lib Dem leader and ex-post office minister Ed Davey trousered £275,000 working for the legal firm that fought hundreds of innocent sub-postmasters accused of fraud. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. Oh, geez. X is glorious. When it comes to BBC are liars, shut it down. If you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes truth. It becomes journalism. Jeez. It's amazing. So the BBC is untrustworthy. So are you. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing to watch what's going on in the world. Time is our friend. Time is our friend. Every time they tell you, oh, don't look over here, look over there. And you're like, no, there's something going on over here. They say it's misinformation. They say it's a conspiracy theory. So far, all of the conspiracy theories have been proven right. So far, all the conspiracy theories have been proven right. All right, so today is a quiet day. The chat isn't chatting as much as it usually is. All right, guys, we're going to be back tomorrow, same time tomorrow. I might go live again later tonight. I might. I feel like I have a bone to pick with YouTube. Okay, I feel like I have a bone to pick. Well, who knows? We've had a nice review, the second part of the live. This is the third attempt to live stream today, and I think we were able to cover the stories. All right, so let me know in the comment section, in the chat, if you're watching after the fact, the comment section, what you think about these stories. In the meantime, if you like what you heard, if you like the way the content has been presented, and you would like to see more of it, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, sharing the video, and if you want to support us, please consider donating to the channel. Use the super chat if you're watching live, or the super thanks if you're watching after the fact, to donate to the channel. It really helps out a whole lot. And if you want to partner with us and go on a further journey with us, then consider subscribing as a member to the channel. That allows you to continue to support us on an ongoing basis. It helps us keep the lights on. I'm currently YouTubing full time, and it will really be encouraging to see you donate to let me use better software than Restream that will let me pull in your chats when you send in your comments and your statements and so on. It's just something that I feel like will be very helpful, and I also have plans for members only content that I'm sure that you would enjoy. All right, guys, I will be seeing you on the next one, possibly tomorrow, same time, noon Eastern. If I do a late night live stream, I will just go live. So subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified whenever I go live, so that if I do go live outside of the planned schedule, you get notified. Thank you so much for